5 Psychosexual Stages according to Sigmund Freud. Freud's psychosexual progressive phases. Freud's hypothesis of psychosexual improvement comprises 5 fundamental stages. Everyone is portrayed by a particular sort of contention and an erogenous zone. Freud believed that people could encounter overindulgence, disappointment, or both during at least one phase. In this video, we will talk about 5 mental stages as per Sigmund Freud. Oral stage. In Freud's hypothesis, the oral stage starts upon entering the world and regularly goes on until youngsters are 1 year old. The oral stage is portrayed by the delighted place in moxie being based on the mouth. Since babies' essential approach to cooperating with the world is through their mouths, Freud thought this is where the charisma is engaged. With the establishing and sucking reflex, breastfeeding, gnawing, and tasting various food varieties, the oral stage is tied in with fulfilling the ID's necessities through the mouth. That's what Freud trusted on the off chance that a youngster at this age isn't as expected weaned, turning out to be less dependent on guardians. Then, at that point, an obsession could happen. Obsession could likewise happen at this stage, assuming that a newborn child's requirements for security, to a great extent satisfied through taking care of, were not met. Freud felt that an oral stage obsession could appear later as hostility or reliance, articulating itself thoughts through enthusiastic propensities like smoking, gorging, and unreasonable drinking. Anal stage. Freud portrayed the butt-centric stage as a shift of erogenous zones from the mouth to the rear end and an emphasis on effective latrine preparing. The butt-centric stage, which Freud accepted to happen when kids are 1 to 3 years of age, moves the delight place from the mouth to the rear end, where youngsters track down joy in pooping. Freud likewise accepted that this is a time of freedom. The youngster understands that they are an individual separate from their folks, with a developing rundown of individual requirements and wants. Freud additionally believed that the self-image, the identity according to the outer world, creates during this stage. The all-encompassing battle in this stage is between the starry-eyed driving forces of the ID and the self-image. Freud accepted that the self-image intercedes between the basic desires of the ID and the real factors of the rest of the world. The more unambiguous struggle of the butt-centric stage, notwithstanding, spins around latrine preparing. Kids need to figure out how to control their substantial requirements, and guardians assume a significant part during this stage. Latrine preparing in view of an arrangement of remuneration and commendation can prompt fruitful route and progression to the following stage. Youngsters feel glad for their achievements and start to see themselves as skillful and competent. In any case, Freud believed that parental reactions that are either excessively tolerant or excessively unforgiving could cause the contrary outcome. He accepted that being excessively severe either by being basic or rebuffing a kid for not gathering latrine preparing objectives could cause a fastidious character. Freud portrayed this character as excessively severe, fanatically flawless, or incredibly close-fisted with cash. He believed that kids who experience tolerant latrine preparing could foster the inverse, a butt-centric expulsive character. This appears as a muddled, disordered, and insubordinate grown-up. Phallic stage. The following phase of psychosexual improvement as per Freud is the phallic stage, described by an adjustment of sexual motivation from the rear end to the private parts. Freud accepted the phallic stage starts when kids are around 3 and go on until they are 6. Freud's hypothesis was that the phallic stage is likewise when the questionable Oedipus and Electra buildings create. Masturbation and an emphasis on the privates are wellsprings of delight during the phallic stage. Notwithstanding the joy of masturbation, youngsters might become mindful of the other gender interestingly. Freud accepted that this familiarity with sexual contrasts could cause fascination and competition as well as desire and dread. His hypothesis was that this can bring about the Oedipal complex for young men and the Electra complex for young ladies. Considered the most disputable of Freud's hypotheses, the Oedipal complex depicts when a male youngster wants their mom. The Electra complex depicts female youngsters who want their dad. Following the legend of Oedipus, in the Oedipal complex, young men wish to wed their mom. However, understanding their dad is areas of strength for two adversary, conform to him all things being equal. In the Electra complex, Freud felt that young ladies, wishing to wed their dad, conform to their mom as an approach to by implication having their dad. Freud additionally accepted that young ladies foster penis envy during this stage and, dissimilar to young men, stay undoubtedly somewhat fixed in this stage all through their lives. Latency stage. Freud depicted the time between when youngsters are 6 through pubescence as the inert period, when the ID is stifled by the inner self. He portrayed this stage as the youngster connecting with the local area by taking on values, creating interactive abilities, and shaping associations with individuals outside the close family. The self-image and superego assume a critical part in this stage, coordinating sexual energy towards various outlets. Side interests, school exercises, and realizing all become the dominant focal point. Freud accepted that this is when kids foster the most grounded associations with others of similar sex, center their energies around these kinships, and secure new information and encounters. Like different stages, Freud accepted obsession was conceivable in this stage, bringing about adolescence and a powerlessness to foster close relational associations with others as a grown-up. Genital stage. In his hypothesis fifth and last psychosexual stage, Freud accepted the genital stage begins at the beginning of adolescence and forges ahead into adulthood. Freud accepted that with the beginning of pubescence comes an enlivened, dynamic moxie and physical allure. Freud speculated that instead of the phallic stage, which was centered around self-joy, the joy during the genital stage is centered around hetero-joy. Freud accepted that the legitimate articulation of sexual impulse was through hetero connections and sex. Likewise, assuming obsession or struggle was created during this or a previous stage, Freud figured corruptions could create, forestalling those sexual connections. Somebody focused on the oral stage, for instance, would track down additional joy in kissing and oral sex than through intercourse. This stage contrasts from the others in that Freud felt the self-image and superego to be completely evolved by this point. Dissimilar to when they were more youthful and controlled essentially by the ID, by adolescence, adolescents can really take a look at their longings, keeping them inside society's norms and assumptions. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe to my channel.